I change your bum life. You fight me, it's a celebration.
I would beat you.
When you sign to fight me, it's a celebration. You ring back home, you ring your wife. Baby, we done it. We're rich, baby. Conor McGregor made us rich. Break out the red panties.
Are you ready?
That goes in the files.
Are you ready? Let's get it all!
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back to the fifth round. As always, your boy Stephen Moustaris and little Gracie over there sleeping. But, man, I'm on a roll right now. I'm just talking on it. The UFC is just coming in hot with all these fight announcements recently. I just talked about, just a little video about the Max Holloway and Arnold Allen fight that just got announced. And, it's starting to feel like, even though Max Holloway is still young and everything, like if you go back and look at what this guy's done just in the last 8 years, let alone in his last, I think he started his career in 2009 or something like that, 2010. So like ever since then, for the last 13 years, 14 years, it's like, man, this guy has done so much. And it's just like, it feels like in a blink of an eye, these guys who were just so young and the fresh faces coming up, knocking out Jose Aldo, doing all these things. It's like, all of a sudden, he's turning into the old guy. I shouldn't say old guy because he's not old, but he's got a lot of miles on him, and it's starting to get to a point where he's exceeded every expectation. He's done everything he's ever set out for. His goals are, locked down. I guess he probably wish he would have been that double champ, but still, it was a great fight with DP. But still, it's starting to feel like, what fight was next for him? We were waiting for like a big name fight. I know he doesn't even seem like he wants the belt anymore. He's kind of like, I've already done that. Like, it's more just exciting fights, and then they announced the Arnold Allen fight. And I know Arnold Allen's about to be 30 here, but he's still a fresh face for the UFC. He's only had a couple fights in the UFC, like I guess, 5 now. But still, and he's coming off some amazing finishes. So, shouts out to him. He deserves this fight, and this is a scary one, but it is starting to feel like, the young bull versus the old man. Like, let's take him out. So it's starting to feel that way. And it kind of goes perfectly into our next fight. I know, don't get me wrong, I know Gilbert Burns has been around a lot longer than Arnold Allen, but Jorge Masvidal and Gilbert Burns was just announced. And this fight really wakes you up. This is one of them ones, not only is because Gilbert Burns is the dog and he's been finishing everybody, before and after the whole, the whole Usman fight. And he gave us one of the greatest fight evers with Khamzat. So it's like, we're all in on Gilbert Burns, but then we're sitting here like, oh man, the return of Jorge Masvidal. You guys can say George. It's Jorge for me. I don't spell I don't spell George like that. So it's Jorge for me. I've always said it, but still, Masvidal's coming back. Haven't seen him in a while. The whole Colby Covington fight. Colby fought an amazing fight, and we're all sitting there pissed off. But like, we all kind of knew that was probably going to happen. Wrestlers aren't, the greatest thing for Masvidal, and then of course he goes out and does that dumb shit where he hits him in the club or dinner or whatever, and then he gets sued by him, and that's why you haven't heard shit from him. He's finally back, but it's like we're at the point now, man. It's like Masvidal, this is where I don't want to doubt these fighters, because I mean, look at guys like Glover Teixeira, and even like Bisping, there's these certain guys that just they shock you for how long they can stay around. Like even like a DC, to be honest, even though Daniel Cormier started later in his MMA career. He was wrestling forever, but still his age, and like Randy Couture, all these guys in their 40s just coming out and doing the damn thing, like Tim Silvio doing his thing back in the day. So, it's impressive to see this shit, but it's at the same time, it's so rare for this, and we're starting to see it drastically nowadays where, the old guy, he wants that one last fight, like the Frankie Edgar, like we want that one last fight, like the Shogun Rua bad, like, we always want to see our legends have that one last little moment, and MMA has been a bitch recently, and it's been ugly. It's like, you want that moment, but then guess what? You're laying on your back, knocked the fuck out in front of your family in New York City. Like, it seems what it's been recently, and it's been a bitch. It's been really true and honest, so it's why you love this sport. But, and I'm not saying that's where Jorge's at yet, but it is. Masvidal is getting there. He hasn't been as active as Gilbert Burns. I think Gilbert Burns has way more options in this entire game to beat Masvidal. I think all the chips are in Gilbert Burns' corner right now, but like, it's like, so clearly Burns still wants a title chance. You know what I'm saying? He's only had one. It was against Usman. Now that Usman lost, I know that Usman and Edwards are going to fight again, but the weight class is shaking up a little bit, and I know we're sitting here with the Masvidal Edwards thing, like, oh man, it's got a lot of backstory, but like. And I know Masvidal's got the name, but I think Masvidal needs at least 2 wins, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? To like really get that belt back. But I know how the UFC is. Don't get me wrong, guys. I know it's not going to be 2 fights. If he comes out and beats Gilbert Burns, and somehow Edwards beats Usman again, you know they're pushing for that fight so quick, and it's going to happen. But we're just getting to a point now. It's like, Masvidal, dude, I'm telling you, I just don't know, like, what's next for him if he does lose this fight. You know, is this time, you know, I know that he just went on that hot streak here in the last, like, 5 or 6 years. He had that, like, hot 5-year streak there where the man completely rejuvenated. And I know clearly, I mean, I used to watch every Kimbo Slice video growing up back in the day. Like, all of us, I think all of us around my age, 30-year-olds, you know, right now, or even like 25-year-olds now, or even, you know, clearly older, but still, then, like, Kimbo Slice in that backyard boxing was the shit back in the day. And then clearly you see Masvidal do the thing, and then he's had some wild knockouts, some wild finishes growing up, and like in Strikeforce and all these things. So I've seen him everywhere, Bellator, everything. So, like, you've seen him as a fighter. You've seen some great fights out of him in the UFC, but you've also seen some out of him, and then it clearly rejuvenates his career. And, you know, now we're sitting here. He's got 2 losses against Usman in a title fight. You know, he's got some tough ass loses against Covington, a tough ass loss. And then we're sitting here now. It's like, okay, you finally come back. You get Gilbert Burns, but like, if he loses this against Gilbert Burns, man, like, do we see a Masvidal retire? Like, what's next with the loss? Like, I know if he's got that win, pretty much the last fight that we want to see with Masvidal is the Edwards fight. I think that's the only thing he's sticking around for. I mean, unless you guys think he wants a Usman third time, he'll never get that Covington fight again. You know, I mean, he might want it. I just don't think he'll ever get it. Like, I just don't know what fight's out there for him. And I don't want to see him fight Khamzat or anybody like that. I'll never want to see him fight a wrestler again. So, like, you know, I get it. I get both of these guys. It's a huge win for both of them. I just feel like Gilbert Burns has a better chance with a win to be able to go on to beat an Edwards, or go on to, you know, still fight a Bilal, beat Bilal, still go on to fight an Usman maybe a second time, get it. You know, as interesting as it is, you know, I would be very, very excited to see a second fight between Burns and Usman. That was a good-ass fight, the first one. But it's just like, I don't want to see a third fight against Usman and Masvidal. I don't want to see a second fight between Covington and Masvidal. I don't want to see Bilal versus Masvidal. I don't want to see Masvidal versus Jeff Neal. I don't want to see Masvidal versus Khamzat. I don't want to see any of that. Honestly, the only fight I would want to see him in is the Edwards fight. And maybe the Wonder Boy fight again, just because that was a fun one. But, like, I just don't know. You know what I'm saying? I just don't think that'll happen. I don't know what it is. So, you know, it's starting to get sad, though. Again, this is my whole point on this whole thing. Is what I was talking about with the Max Holloway thing. Like, if you guys have been following the sport as long as I have, or even longer, or up to it, but if you guys are, like, more so the COVID fan, you know, group, which is nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong at all. I'm just saying, if you guys are, you're probably not as open to this yet, and you guys probably haven't been thinking about this yet. But once you've been around, you know, the sport as long as, you know, I have, or like even like NBA and stuff like that, like a bigger sport like that, NFL, like, you know, you start to really grow with these guys. You start to see the trends that happen, but then you start really, like, stepping outside and not just looking at the fight game. You start, you know, really seeing these guys as human beings, and seeing them, like, what their personality is and who they really are outside of fighting. And then you realize, like, man, like, we're getting old, dude. Like, this guy that I've lived with for the last 10 years, at least being a fan and watching this dude fight and put on performances, like, you know, he ages too. You know, that guy's money and everything, his struggles in life and everything, like, that stuff is still a factor for him. Like, you know, the more successful these guys get, the less hungry they are to fight. So it's like, you know, we go through all these emotions with these fighters, and we take it for granted because we think just because they come out and put on such a great performance and sleep Ben Askren one fight, it's like you think that's always going to be there. And then you realize, like, oh my God, like 40 comes quick, or 38 comes quick, and the end of these guys' careers come quick. And then we're sitting here, like, each one of these fights could be one of the last fights we ever see out of him. Like, I know Jorge wants that Conor fight, but I just don't think Conor's ever going to take it. I think Conor knows, like, yeah, I struggle with Nate Diaz, who was, you know, just because of the size of Nate. I don't think he struggled with the strength or anything like that. Just struggled with the size and the cardio. And yeah, Masvidal doesn't have the cardio, but Masvidal's way stronger than. I just think Conor knows that that's just not a good fight for him. I really do, and I just don't think that does anything for either of them. You know, Masvidal does stuff for his money in his bank account, and clearly the fame and everything, but I don't know. This is just a really tough one, man. I want to see Masvidal win, even though I love Gilbert Burns. It would be cool to see Masvidal win. I'm a Masvidal guy, but it's like, deep down, like, what is left for this guy? Like, if he loses this and there's pretty much Edwards fight's gone, like, and yeah, I guess if we're being honest here too, like, say Burns beats, you know, Masvidal, and then, you know, fucking Usman goes out and beats Edwards in the trilogy fight, like, I guess they could throw that in. I guess they could make that happen after this fight, but I just know. I'm just saying, like, even if Masvidal does have one more fight or just two more fights, like, what is left? Like, I think we're coming down to the last year of, Jorge Masvidal, or maybe last year and a half, whatever you want to say, of fights, and really only 2 fights. So, and then I'm saying this now, he could go out and sleep Burns and then make me sound like an asshole, and then go out, sleep Edwards for the title, and then goes out, sleeps Usman for a title, goes out and beats Khamzat for a title, and then puts on a 4-fight fucking win streak that we're sitting here like, oh my God, is Jorge Masvidal the greatest fighter of all time? Like, it's probably what's going to happen now that I brought all this up, but if I never would have, most of the shit would probably happen. Loses to Burns probably, and maybe like looks good at first, and then, maybe gets subbed or maybe gets finished or something, because Burns is a dog. I don't care what anybody says. Burns has the upper hand in most of this. I know Masvidal is a striker, stand-up. I know he's filthy. But I'm telling you, it's something about momentum and just the looseness in the game and everything, confidence in the game. I'm telling you, Burns, the way he took, I know Neil Magny is Neil Magny. Neil Magny's the most frustrating fighter you'll ever watch, so it's not that big of a deal to say this, but just how easy he made that look on the ground. You're telling me he can't do that to Jorge Masvidal? You're telling me he can't do that? Because I'm telling you he can. Colby Covington held that man down forever. Usman held that man down forever. Masvidal has been very open, saying, I hate wrestling. I'm a decent wrestler when it's actually scrambling wrestling, but when I'm fighting, these guys like a Khamzat, if he fought Khamzat, oh my God, I don't want to see that shit. When these guys are really good at their top game and, displaying their dominance and position and everything, it's just not fair for Masvidal. And I shouldn't say fair because that's not the right word, but it's not fun. So, it's been the 5th round. As always, your boy Stephen Moustaris, and let me know what you guys think. Clearly there's going to be a lot of Masvidal fans, and clearly, there's still some left in the tank, but still, like, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, and it's, you guys just got to start taking these in and really appreciate these fighters for what they got left. So, Stephen Moustaris as always. Let's go, baby.